Hi, everybody. Welcome to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My peerless co-host is Laura Blackwell, and we are on the doorstep of 5 years of bringing y'all Story Hour. So it's kind of amazing that we are still doing this. I started Story Hour in the early days of the pandemic with the intention of just creating a place for my writer friends and I to get together and build some community and share our work and just be with each other. And very shortly after I kicked it off, I asked my friend and colleague Laura Blackwell to join me as co-host. And so we've been doing this for, likewise, my friend. Um, so 5 years, man, it's just incredible. And just bringing you what we like to believe is really the best spoken word speculative fiction you can get out there. And we draw from basically every corner of the broad tent that is speculative fiction. And the way this works is super simple. And I like to think of it as one of the oldest um, human things, which is sitting around the fire telling each other lies. So every week, we have two authors, about 30 minutes each, sharing their work. And that's it. It's that simple. And this week, we are really happy to welcome back to Story Hour ML Krishnan and Dawn Vogel. Uh, Before we jump into the program itself, I just want to give a shout out to the SIFWA Givers Grant, who for the last couple of years has been helping us to basically pay for Zoom and web hosting and stuff like that, and just keep these virtual rooms open. So we are going to open the program tonight with Dawn Vogel. Dawn has written for children, teens, and adults, spanning genres, places, and time periods. More than 100 of her stories and poems have been published by presses both large and small. Her specialties include young protagonists, siblings who bicker but love each other in the end, which, I mean, who doesn't love that? And things in the water that want you dead. She's a member of SIFWA and Codex Writers. She lives in Seattle with her awesome husband and fellow author, Jeremy Zimmerman, and their cats. Excuse me. All right. Never inhale saliva. It's bad. You can visit Dawn at historythatneverwas.com or on Blue Sky at History Never Was. Dawn, take it away.
All right, thank you, Daniel and Laura and Amel. I am reading my story, Best of Both Worlds tonight. This was in the Dangerous Waters anthology, I think in 2021. And this is a sulky story, which means that in terms of the content, there is some coercive relationship because of the sulky, and there is also minor body horror. The night Ray brought Kayla and her sulky pelt home, he let her sit in the living room for less than 5 minutes. It was the first time she'd been inside of a building. She didn't have time to take it all in: the faux wood paneling, the worn but rough upholstery, the carpet that hid a myriad of stains and sins, before he took her to the second building, the tattoo parlor. She was still finding her voice, so she could only shake her head in terror when they parked outside. "It ain't for you," Ray said. Inside, Ray handed a silver key and a stack of cash to a lean, dark-haired man with hunger in his eyes. The man took it into a back room, then returned with a vial of shimmering silver ink like moonlight across the sea. Kayla practiced using her newfound voice to the hum of the tattoo needle as the tattoo artist recreated the key on Ray's forearm. She'd heard about how human men locked up sulky pelts so their sulky wives couldn't return to the sea. She was sure that was what Ray had done. But the stories that made their way beneath the waves always talked about sulkies finding the key, unlocking the chest, and returning home. If the key was within Ray's tattoo, she had little chance of retrieving it. This strange place would be her home forever. Ray expected the usual wifely things from Kayla: cooking, cleaning, and conjugal satisfaction. He had to teach her about all three. She took each one in stride. As she worked at any of the tasks, her thoughts drifted to her home, flitting through her memories like minnows through kelp. Ray didn't seem to care if her mind was miles away. Once she'd taken care of things around the house each day, and while Ray was at work or asleep in front of some sports game on the weekends, Kayla spent most of her time at the small rocky beach at the end of the road, the one where Ray had found her and her pelt. The Oregon coast was cold and gray, and the beach was deserted nearly every afternoon. The first time someone else was on what Kayla had come to think of as her beach, she recoiled, unsure if she should leave. The person on the beach turned before Kayla had made up her mind and gestured for her to come over. "You're Ray's wife, aren't you?" the elderly woman asked. Kayla nodded, unable to form words. "I've seen you out here before. I'm Gladys Evans. Last house on the left is mine." She gestured behind her at the dull, tan house with a yard overflowing with flowers. Kayla didn't know a lot about flowers, but she enjoyed the riot of colors, reminding her of the many-colored fish she'd once swum among. "Kayla," she said, her voice quiet. "Hope you don't mind me intruding on your beach time," Mrs. Evans said. "I've been coming out here every day that I've lived here, but when I noticed you out here as well, I timed my trips so I wouldn't interfere with yours. But you look like you could use someone to talk to now and then." "I don't know whole lot of people here," Kayla admitted. She knew a few faces at the grocery store, but the few sentences Mrs. Evans had just said to her was about the most conversation she'd gotten out of anyone, even Ray. "And no, I don't mind." "Glad to hear it," Mrs. Evans replied. "My husband was a sailor. Not lost at sea, mind you. No, he died on land. But he always talked about the water with such passion. I come out here to remember him." "I'm sorry he's gone," Kayla said. She'd heard people on television shows use a different expression, but she thought she'd gotten it close enough. "I reckon you're a bit like him. You love the water with all your heart." Kayla understood that wives were supposed to love their husbands and vice versa. She opened her mouth to protest. "No, no, I understand. I'm sure you love Ray too, just like my Jimmy loved me. It's okay to love a person and a place. It's different." Kayla nodded, unable to form the right words at that moment. She felt like she shouldn't be having this conversation. "I should get back home. It was nice to meet you, Mrs. Evans." "Gladys, please." Kayla nodded and murmured, "Gladys." When Kayla had lived in the water, any time she or one of her kin became aware of a human having shed 7 tears into the ocean, one of the Selkies would go to them. She wasn't sure if it would work for a Selkie without her pelt to cry into the ocean, but she figured it was worth trying. The effort of creating sufficient tears to drop 7 of them into the water led to Kayla sobbing, her shoulders heaving. A warm arm wrapped around her shoulders, smelling faintly of peppermint. Though the arm was slender, it was sturdy, and Kayla leaned into the embrace as her sobs subsided. "You want to talk about it?" Gladys finally asked. "Talk about what?" Kayla asked through her sniffling. "You were just bawling your eyes out for no reason then?" "Oh," Kayla blushed. "No, but I miss my family." Gladys nodded. "Makes sense, young bride from out of town. Do you get to call them now and then?" "No, my family doesn't have a phone." "That's a shame," Gladys said, seemingly not surprised that someone might not have a phone. "You should ask Ray to take you to visit them more often then." "Oh, I couldn't," Kayla said. "Well, you ought to. Young brides still need their families now and again. Or if he can't take you himself, he ought to at least let you catch a bus or plane or whatever it takes." Kayla shrugged. "He wouldn't know what to do without me, he says." Gladys scoffed. "That's probably true. I'm not sure how he got along before he found you. But it's not fair, now is it? Not how they promised it'd be when I was a girl. Women were going to find a place in the working world and stop being housewives. We were going to have real freedom," she sighed. Kayla wanted to tell Gladys that she'd had freedom once before Ray took it from her, but she couldn't speak those words, and she was on the verge of tears again. She only managed, "I should get back home." "You feeling better now?" "Much," Kayla said, forcing a smile. She hurried home and cried into a pile of towels that needed to be washed. When she'd finally cried out enough of her sorrow, she tossed the sodden towels into the washer and started the cycle. As Kayla walked to and from her errands in town, she passed the tattoo parlor, her second building, regularly. She went in one afternoon, looking at the pictures of mermaids and anchors and hearts. The girl at the counter had red hair, spiky like coral. Kayla liked her immediately. Hey there, Mash. Can I help you pick something out? I'm not sure, Kayla said. I don't know a lot about tattoos. Is all tattoo ink made from things? Things? You mean like minerals and chemicals, right? Kayla shook her head. Solid things. Solid? Like what? Ash asked, standing up straighter. Keys. Ash opened her mouth several times, then beckoned Kayla closer. Where'd you hear about that? My husband has a tattoo of a key, and I think the ink came from that key. Rubbing her face, Ash nodded, just barely. Yeah, okay, what are you looking for? Kayla's shoulders slumped. I don't know. A key of my own? She shook her head. No, that wouldn't do me any good. I need the key he had, not my own. Ash inclined her head. Ah, you need to get him to get his tattoo removed. Extract the key. Can that be done? Kayla asked, eyes wide. It's difficult, taxing for the artist and the client, but yes. Ash shook her head. There are easier ways, though. He's locked up something dear to me, and the only way I know to get it back is to have the key. After studying Kayla's face, Ash nodded. I can do it. You need to bring him to the shop after hours, and you'll have to figure out payment. Kayla had little money. Ray kept a close watch on her credit card statement and only gave her spending cash on rare occasions. She hadn't kept much of that either. What sort of payment? Money or valuables, generally. Kayla only had a single valuable, and it wasn't something she wanted to give away. But if solid things could be made into tattoo ink, maybe that included her pelt. What can you do with the sulky pelt? Ash's eyes widened. Are you serious? Kayla nodded. That's a literal gold mine. Ash's gaze went distant, but she nodded, rubbing her chin. Then her gaze snapped back to Kayla. Yeah, I can do it. One sulky point pelt is enough for half a dozen tattoos, so you'd be paying for his tattoo removal more than adequately. And I assume you'll want one? A tattoo? Of what? Ash grinned and gestured to one of the pieces of artwork on the wall, a mermaid with a tail that looked more like a seal's body than fish fins. A transformation. Seal, woman, and something in between. Entirely under your control. Kayla didn't have to think about her answer. Yes. Then she paused. I need 2 tattoos. You only need the one, Ash said, frowning. One for me and one for a friend. Ash hesitated only a moment before sticking out her hand. Deal. Kayla had found that Ray was much easier to deal with after he'd had a good meal and a few drinks. She suggested his favorite buffet for dinner as a treat for their upcoming anniversary. He wobbled when he rose from the table, but he'd never let Kayla drive his truck, and she'd never learned. Let's take a walk around the block while you drink some water, she suggested. As they passed the tattoo parlor, Kayla smiled. Do you remember bringing me here the first day I was on land? Ray smirked and nodded, tapping the key tattoo on his arm. Sure do. Do you ever think about getting more? Kayla asked. Tattoos, I mean, not keys. Don't know that I need any more. This here's the most important one. It means I've got you. Oh, that's sweet, Kayla said with a forced giggle, ignoring the bitterness in her throat. Hey, let's go look at the art for a few minutes. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll see something I like. Ash smiled broadly at Kayla and Ray as they walked in, treating them both like she'd never seen them before. Hey, I'm Ash. Can I help you with anything? Just browsing the art, Ray said, though his gaze stuck to Ash and a partially concealed tattoo on her chest. So what's that one? Ash looked down. Oh, just an anchor. She pulled a bit of her shirt aside to give Ray more of a view of the tattoo and her cleavage. Kayla glanced between the art on the wall, which she was supposed to be browsing, and Ash, unsure what needed to be done to get Ray from ogling Ash to having his tattoo removed. She stepped a little closer, and Ash flashed an okay gesture out of Ray's line of sight. Then Ash dropped her hand, grabbed something that looked like a cleaning cloth, and jammed it in Ray's face. Get ready to catch him. Ray swooned backward, and Kayla managed to mostly support his weight as he began to fall. Ash moved past both of them to lock the door and turn out the light over the reception area. Then she slung one of Ray's limp arms over her shoulders and inclined her head toward the back of the shop. Help me get him into a chair. The back of the shop had a variety of chairs and tables, and Ash and Kayla maneuvered Ray to one with a wide armrest, which Ash propped his tattooed arm atop. Ash then produced a series of straps like seat belts and belts for pants. Okay, we're going to restrain him in case the chloroform doesn't keep him under once the pain starts. This isn't how you normally do tattoos, is it? Kayla asked as she helped Ash with the restraints. Ash laughed. Oh, gods, no. This is for special circumstances only. We're going to want to gag him in case he starts screaming when he wakes up, too. A slight pang of guilt struck Kayla. We're not going to kill him, are we? No, not kill him. It will hurt, Ash shrugged, him and me. But I've got painkillers, and this is all going to be worth it. She paused and looked at Kayla. Right, you need the key to get the pelt? Kayla nodded. All right. Ash pulled her phone from the pocket. It's up to you if you want to watch me do this. When I'm almost done, I want you to use my phone to call the emergency contact right there on the lock screen. My friend Jorge is an EMT. He'll come and take your husband to the hospital just in case there are any complications. Should I watch? Kayla asked. How do you feel about blood? Ash asked in response, holding up a scalpel. It doesn't bother me much. Suit yourself, Ash said. Kayla had drifted off at some point after Ash began chanting as a part of the magic that would restore the key from Ray's tattoo. Computer, call Jorge, Ash said, rousing Kayla. The phone in Kayla's hand connected to another line and started ringing on that end. A man's voice came from the speaker. Hey, Ash, it's time? It's time. On my way. The line went silent. Ash held out her hand, a blood-red key in it. If you want to wash it off. No need, Kayla said, her gaze transfixed by the key. She handed Ash the phone and accepted the sticky, slightly damp key. Then she glanced at Ray. Is he? He'll be fine. Ash gestured at a bandage covering where the tattoo had been. They might decide to give him a skin graft to cover it up, but he'll probably just get some stitches and be on his way. Jorge will tell the ER staff that it's self-inflicted. Oh. Kayla returned her attention to the key. It's going to take me a little bit to walk home, get the pelt, and come back. Is that all right? Ash nodded. Yeah, I'll be here. I'm going to have the rest of the girls come over and we'll wait for you. Rest of the girls? The other clients, Ash clarified. I'll turn the pelt into ink and we'll do everyone's tattoos tonight. You still up for it? Kayla nodded. Yeah, I'll be back soon. The bloody key stuck to Kayla's palm as though it had been glued down, but that didn't stop her from checking to make sure it was still there every few minutes as she walked home. It was unbelievable enough that Ray had gone to such lengths to ensure that she never found the key and retrieved her pelt. That Ash had retrieved the key hardly seemed any stranger than Ray's actions. As Kayla neared the house, she slowed. She'd told Ash that she'd come back to the shop with her pelt, but the house wasn't far from the beach. There was no real need to return to the tattooist to share her powers with Ash and other women. Why couldn't she just take the pelt and run? A vehicle turned onto the residential road, moving slowly, but Kayla's heart sped as she whipped her gaze toward it, afraid of spotting Ray's truck or a car filled with Ash and her friends, making sure Kayla was holding up her end of the bargain. It was neither, just Gladys, the very person Kayla wanted to see. Gladys slowed as she drove past Kayla. Where's that man of yours in his truck? Clenching her fist tight around the key so her neighbor wouldn't see it or Ray's blood, Kayla shrugged and smiled. He's out. We had dinner, and he had some things to do, so I thought I'd walk back. It's a lovely evening. Yes, I suppose it is. It's a shame I didn't see you sooner, or I'd have offered you a ride. Thank you, but I'm almost home already. And even closer to truly being home. Gladys shook her head. A real gentleman would have seen you home safely first, but I shouldn't talk about Ray in front of his wife like that. I'm sorry, Kayla. Kayla shook her head. It's all right. I wanted to walk. She paused, still unsure if she wanted to head back to the tattoo shop or not. The pelt would let her have her own freedom. The tattoos would let her offer Gladys real freedom, too. If you're not busy, though, I might need to go back to town. Sure, Gladys said. I've got some groceries to put away, but come on down when you're ready. Hell, come on down if you just want to chat or take a late night walk on the beach. I will, thanks. Gladys made it all the way to her driveway before Kayla walked the last few yards to her own driveway. She had two routes to freedom, and she wasn't sure which one she wanted to take. Even though she knew Ray couldn't have made it home before her without her knowing, Kayla checked every room before she dug through Ray's side of the closet. Piles of clothes that had slid off hangers and old shoes heaped over the chest where he'd put her pelt. She fitted the sticky, bloody key to the lock and turned it. Her pelt still bore the tang of salt water, even locked in a box for almost a year. She lifted it, the velvety softness caressing her fingers, calling her to don it, to hurry back to the safety of the sea. She thought about everything she and Gladys had talked about over the past year and made her decision. Ash grinned when Kayla and Gladys walked into the tattoo parlor. Told ya, she said to the cluster of other women. The other women came in all sizes, with skins in varied shades and their appearances all just as different. They'd brought snacks, drinks, an old boombox, and some pillows. They'd turned the tattoo studio into a homey, comfortable place. What's all this then? Gladys asked. A tattoo party? Kayla handed Ash a paper bag and nodded. She turned back to Gladys, and the words came out in a rush. I'm not from around here because I'm from the ocean. I'm a Selkie. Ash can make tattoo ink from my pelt, and all of us here will be able to transform freely between women and Selkie and something in between. I'm going home, and I want you to be able to go into the sea that your husband loved so much whenever you want, and always be safe. Will you? Will you get a tattoo with us? Gladys bowed her hand, reaching out for Kayla's. Kayla had seen people in town do this when they wanted to pray, and she worried that she'd said too much, that Gladys was going to think she was a deranged person who needed Jesus in her life. You'll go home, Gladys asked softly, be with your family again. Yes, Kayla said. And you'll be safe there? Safe and loved, Kayla said. Gladys nodded and looked up at Kayla, her eyes wet with tears. Then yes, I'll do it. I just couldn't bear to think of you without me looking after you. And if I'm going to become a Selkie lady, I'll be heading south toward warmer waters. Kayla grinned, happy for the first time in a while. How about Hawaii? That sounds about right, Gladys said. Then you won't have to worry about me because I'll be right there too. Gladys's face split into a grin as wide as Kayla's. Best of both worlds, she said as she embraced Kayla. Let's do this. Let's be free.
Daniel is dumbstruck with his joy at the story. Actually, he just hasn't. Daniel, you're still muted. I mean, I was happy to just relax and go, ah. I always want the Selkies to win at the end. Oh, you know what? It's my fault because I'm running tech and I apparently didn't get him co-hostified properly, so he can't unmute himself. Good job, me. Sorry.
No worries. What I was going to say was, Dawn, what a beautiful story. Thank you so much. Um, I just love that. It's our custom story hour just to breathe between stories, pause, and just let the work sort of resonate. And so we're going to do that. And let's just take a deep breath or two, and then we'll move on. All right. Dawn Vogel, everybody. Thank you so much, Dawn. Really beautiful Selkie story. Our next writer is M.L. Krishna, who's also a Story Hour veteran. M.L. Krishnan originally hails from the coastal shores of Tamil Nadu, India. She's a 2019 graduate of Clarion West. Yay, Clarion West. A 2022 recipient of the Malay Arts Fellowship and a 22 to 23 McDowell Fellow. Her stories and essays have appeared or are forthcoming in Strange Horizons, Black Warrior Review, Diabolical Plots, and elsewhere. Her work has been anthologized in the year's Best Dark Fantasy and Horror, Afterlives, the year's Best Death Fiction, Wigleaf Top 50, Best Microfiction, Best Small Fictions, and more. And you can find her online at mlkrishnan.com. ML, thank you so much for coming back, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. So a bit of content warnings for my story today. It features death, suicide, body horror, pretty much the exact flip of Dawn's story. So just so you know what you're getting into, and some sex. So the story I'm reading is titled Measurements Expressed as Units of Separation from Neon Hemlock's Crawling Moon anthology. So I'm just going to jump right into it. 7 centimeters of my ring finger on my right hand, sliced with a hot knife through gristle and tendon and bone, as though it were as soft as an ingot of butter. 2,490 kiloliters of water had once ripped her and I from one another, had once sheathed her and I to one another. In the middle of it all was a jungle. And in the middle of the jungle was a gash of concrete within the forested darkness. This concrete semicircled into a squat array of buildings, into the Edo Christian College of Arts and Sciences for Women, a missionary endeavor of the Church of Scotland to wring South Indian women into the narrow flute of Bible truths. But like most missionary undertakings in Tamil Nadu, this too snarled into indifference as the locals flinched away foreign ideals and foreign encroachments as they were wont to do. Over the years, our college had become a knot of expendable girls, offering subjects like homeopathy and X-ray crystallography and folk practices that sounded carefree and bohemian on paper, but were simply designed to fill the listless expanse of day that sludged from one hour to the next. Majors like engineering or accounting or English literature were deemed unnecessary, with their meteor-bright promises of ambition and status, a hindrance for the young women that were expected to annual themselves with a degree just for marriage. The only breath of tenacity on our campus was a euphorbia shrub that knuckled against the windows of our hostel dormitories, the green-white glint of its leaves a sieve of light through the glass, freckling our faces with shadows from its creamy flowers that parted the foliage like teeth. No one cared about anything at all. Phrases like proper decorum, moral turpitude, no loafing, and academics over hooliganism fluttered out of staff lounges and plunged to their doom in the underbrush. Most of us attended college strobing on coffee and a mash of pills from the town pharmacy, an opiate confection better suited to lorry drivers who drove 15 plus hours across state lines without stopping to eat or piss. In class, we sat immobile under a drug-rimmed void, our attention fractaling into shards with pleasantly blank expressions on our faces. And as long as we were tactful in bribing the hostel wardens with booze at regular intervals, we could slip in and out of campus unnoticed. Some of the girls fell into the toil of boyfriends and married lovers from neighborhood towns and villages. Mediocre sex and controlling men were the only flashes of revelry around these parts, so the students braved the risk calculus of defying college administrators. These men were all the same to me, an amorphous, shifting-eyed clump whose collective entitlement roped around my neck and under my armpits, leaving friction burns in its wake. Besides, my parents had arranged my marriage to a distant cousin I did not know, bottle corking my life into clean submission. This is why I chose the forest instead, why I chose to impale myself on the dense ground cover of the lantana, choking on its powdery blooms as it stripped the skin clean off my calves in sheets. Why, in another instance, I stumbled over an anthill, my thighs already scudding with bites. Later, I would core each scratch and bruise with my fingers until my welts pulped into tenderness. I wondered if this was what it meant to feel something. Blood, its crusted over aftermath. Somewhere else, a distant promise of pain. Once, as I pushed further, still further into the forest viscid with heat, I came upon a crumbling stepwell a few kilometers into the woods. Such reservoirs were not uncommon around these parts. bodies of water sluiced out of the earth and into pipes through boreholes. My nightly excursions now hallowed with purpose, and I began swimming in the well's cool depths under the foliage dark. That night started without incident. I peeled off my kurta and pants, and as if on cue, silken wings churnomids hummed over my bare skin as I stepped closer to the water. A repetitive sound nailed me in place amid the shadowed reeds, a low splish splash that felt like it belonged to a large animal body. The enzyme burn of my fear pulled that movement through an eye needle, a breath, an immobile form, a tongue lapping against the steps. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fling myself into the well and throttle whatever it was. But a face pushed out of the ripples, followed by a gulped exhalation, a nose ring concentric circling her neck, and my anger settled into recognition. It was our folk arts professor. Shrouding herself in voluminous cotton saris, she would move from class to class during the day as though she were insubstantial, a wisp, earthed by the gold nose ring through her left nostril. Her hair was a braid of feathery milfoils across the well's surface. Arms softened into silhouette as she cleaved through the water. I continued to watch her, an improbable want knifing into me. And then a glottal, a lapid mouth, fangs, liquid spuming up my nostrils. Vacuumed into a black so thick and opaque, I felt comforted that this was how it all ended, stricken by desire, suffocation, and the well I so loved. 43 inches of snake shed was the only part of her that I had found intact, crimped within a groove on the stepwell after she was gone. But that was not entirely true. She had also left me a story about a prince. Ippakar, she would say in Tamil, after I had spent an afternoon in her office, rumpled between her thighs underneath an overlarge desk, my wrists spider silk bound, my head cowled by the lower half of her sari, and I would always bite my laughs into her while she sat there as though hewn from gneissic rock, forcefully dull in a way that put a finite end to conversations or questions, the upper half of her sari pleating across her left shoulder, a double-lined teakwood panel, the only furrow between my unclothed body and the student's feet. The wide open gorge of her face, still immobile as she welcomed or bade her students goodbye, as she came undone suddenly, always suddenly, a rip current in the back of my throat as I held her constriction, her pleasure, in my mouth. Listen now. Ipokare, she would say in Tamil, after the waters of our dissolution, a world or two or three in my stomach. She said that she was from the sea, that she beached herself on the shore between her love and his love, the lacquered sheen of her ventral scales cupping darkness, a sine wave granulating into dust. Who was he? Who was this prince? I would ask. He was always different, she would say, pulling me into the upside-down night of the stepwell, pale green azola and velvet leaf drifting in clouds past my ears, as she dragged me still deeper, my lungs swelling out of my ribs, a plural sac inflatable devoid of air. And I thought to myself, this is happening again, letting desire fishhook me into compliance. The sky at the floor of the well was spongy and perforated, like an earlobe, leaking red. She would stream apart in hexagonal scales of blue and black, her once human skin crackling open around her once human mouth. Then a ripple and a lateral expansion, her lidless eyes refracting the moonlight as it washed our tongues. I wasn't sure if I was alive or dead or a half-life suspension in formaldehyde. What did it matter when the pale cream of her dorsal body furled around me as her blue-lipped mouth kissed neurotoxin promises down my torso? What did it matter? Listen now, she would say. In each of her stories that were mostly the same, the ending sometimes varied. Every time she would speak of the prince whose beauty was as fierce and unyielding as a thunderclap. His father was the lord of flowing rivers and war, after all, and his brothers were in order, the son of the lord of shadows and judgment, the son of the winds, and the twin sons of the horse physicians. They had one common wife among them. Everybody knows the story, I would say. Not like this, she would reply. Let me tell you about their wife. This princess, was an Ionija, a woman who had not been gestated in a womb. Her father was the Lord of Fire, who was also her mother, as she had leaped out fully formed from the flame instead. But this was not the princess's story, not quite. This is just to make you understand that being a husband of the woman who was a child of fire was not easy, she had said. Why does this feel like an excuse? Just listen. The prince, who was the son of flowing rivers and war, was fond of carnage. He never had to travel far, as battles landed on him like felled trees wherever he went. But even princes, fond of fighting, eddied into currents of exhaustion, and he found himself on a riverbank, missing his wife. Who is to say how it happened? Perhaps he saw the snake first, sunning its honeyed underbelly on a rock, opalescent scales dripping golden light. Perhaps the snake saw him first, losing herself to his storm-cloud skin and eyes and glistening forearms. In one version of the tale, he would have a son with the snake. In another, he would become a father to many snake children, lulled into comfort sans princely responsibilities. In yet another version, they met on the seashore instead of a riverbank, a cresting inevitability, their union already foreordained. But in every story, he would leave the snake, his son, and his children behind. He would always return to his brothers, his wife of fire. He was a prince after all. I won't leave you, I would promise each time. You are not a prince, she would laugh. 37 feet of a washed concrete stage floor, across which you pushed a wooden table. Do you remember their faces? Enthusiastic, fidgety, offended. I remember it all. It was the annual day function where college administrators, local politicians, sump pump entrepreneurs, and housewives roused themselves from their bridge games and vaudevils involving mortifications of the flesh, making their presence known on campus since an event was an event after all, even if the free snacks were Cara biscuits and coffee veined with bluish milk. That day reminded us that our college sometimes grasped at normalcy, that it did have clubs. I mean, did you know that there was a club claiming to promote Eastern and Western solidarity through fusion dance? Their members popped and locked to Tamil Kuttu songs on stage, and as I watched them, my embarrassment puddled into something else, a thrum along the edge of my hairline. Something new, like awe. None of us knew how to join these clubs that stood outside time. I asked you once as we lay on the whitest step of the well, our legs scissored under a thread-like balsamic moon that reeled light back into itself, and you wouldn't give me a clear answer. It was okay. You were preoccupied, terror and passion congealing your words a whole 6 months before the annual day function, because you were expected to put up a solo performance. You are the folk arts professor after all. But could you blame us for anticipating a show that was at least normal? Like a comedy where dancers weighed themselves down with a parabola of wood held in place by a rod across their shoulders, arcing and bowing their obeisance at the foot of a papier-mâché approximation of our six-headed god of war, adorned with peacock feathers, or even a villeparte, a chanted in intonation, a lament involving a tightly strung bow as an instrument. So when the lights dimmed and we all hushed in excitement, we could not help but respond in surprise at the single table that decorated the stage. I admit I was so fixated on you that I didn't see the table at all at first. You had walked out in only a petticoat and nothing else. I recognized it immediately as I was the one who had dyed it with turmeric, a beige, whirled in yellows, for you. I felt marked, chosen somehow. A nudge in our arrangement, your feelings a pulse away from indifference, a not quite, but also not a no, inching into a terrain of acknowledgement where I could allove myself a nub of hope. Gasps ricocheted across the audience. You were fully clothed, but a petticoat was an inner garment, the first of many layers closest to the body, its visibility an affront. You knew and you did not care, because you were already cloaked in a flesh and blood skin not your own, the petticoat your fourth or fifth or sixth membrane, and that was when I think my desire signal flared into love, a pyrotechnic explosion, all-consuming. You had now begun to dance, each movement towards the table a practiced Bharatanatyam nade, step by excruciating step. Your eye contact with the audience was a taut line. Not a sound was heard. Then you slowly slid the table from one end of the stage to another with your elbows. Then you sat on the stage floor with your back against its legs, your hands crossed in a shunya mudra, the gesture for emptiness, for what seemed like a whole hour, but perhaps it only lasted a few minutes. In the front row, a politician cursed his sycophants, his voice a conspicuous javelin of sound, rising and rising as if to warn. His white veshti and shirt blazed with purpose in the darkened auditorium, and we all understood who the expletives were actually for. As if on cue, parents walked out in pairs as our college principal placated them with fee vouchers and lunches. Some of the more rowdy girls hooted A and Yaka and threw paper planes at you. One plane skimmed the stage floor in a low axis, grazing your feet. You did not move. But here's the thing. I couldn't understand why they didn't see what I saw, which was your tail splintering halogen beams into chips of light, your mudras a dehiscence through your human-seeming limbs, your underbelly Mobius looping the perimeter of the stage. Why could they not see? This is why I thought I was set apart, chosen, especially by you. 409.4 kilometers was how far I moved after her dismissal. A rustication because of the annual day function debacle, the official statements seethed on our notice boards. Bracts of interest curling out of my palm flattened the moment I saw the announcement. I felt no need to finish my degree, no need to return to the dim strobe of opiates and classrooms and apathy. I married my cousin. I couldn't find a reason not to. The prince always returned home, even if the home that he knew unformed into an edgeless shape, utterly new. This is how it always was. My husband, my cousin, was a man inured to family customs, his mind calibrated to only auto-suggest whatever societal and cultural norm that was in vogue at the moment. He hated decision-making, loud noises, birds, television news anchors, overgrown plants, anything that declared its presence in full, that took up a lot of space. His days neatly cubbied into geometrical blocks of time that were predetermined by someone or something else. His bosses at work, his mother, the fair price ration shop that only sold lentils and rice for 2 hours each morning. One evening, I stepped out of the bathroom and into the dining room, completely naked. I did not desire my husband at all, but I did seek to provoke him. A tiny coil of satisfaction lodged itself in my throat at the idea of his shock, his discomfiture. Instead, his face held no reaction at all. No reaction to my body, its willful intention. Enna, he said. Enna, I asked in response. Our whats hung suspended in the air, unclaimed. Then he stood up without a word, walked over to the settee, and turned on the TV. After that day, I understood that in marrying me, my cousin had reached his life purpose, his pristine adherence to tradition fulfilled. He did not care for anything else. Somehow, I felt that this too was her doing. 108 days of riverbanks, lakes, estuaries at the mouth of the bay, islets at the Crocodile Bank outside the city, pockets where bodies of water sheared land. The sloughed remnants of your scales, glass-like. I ran my thumb along the scoots of your belly at each waterfront, remembering how it used to be my teeth paring your human, then snake, then human membrane, one after the other after the other. The salt metal tang of your limbless form, blistering the underside of my tongue. At the Crocodile Bank, I befriended a herpetologist. Her muscles would pulse under her safari shirt as she rolled up her pant cuffs and tucked her long braid inside a bucket hat while cradling adult crocodiles in her arms. Somehow I thought this might be easy, and it was. All it took was 3 guided become a zookeeper for a day tours in succession, and the herpetologist's interest in me switched on like a heat lamp. It was the linear endpoint of a shared drink and a decision one evening, and what did it matter? My husband was remote enough to be an apparition, a non-presence. Most importantly, she was not you. The herpetologist's rancid sweat was like mine, all too human, her laughter a sonorous boom, her torso thick and unspeakably beautiful. But when she got on her knees in front of me, her arms encircling my waist, fingers unfurling into an orifice, all I could see were her specimens on the wall, a bas relief of reptiles entombed in milky jars, as my legs slung over her shoulders, tightening around her jawline. I would whisper the names of each bottle label as I bucked on her tongue. Checkered keelback, Bengal monitor, rat snake, mugger eggs, blue-lipped sea crate, blue-lipped sea crate, blue-lipped sea crate. I would have known those markings anywhere, known those blue-black bands to be a premonition. 2.6 meters of high tide, waves keening against the bluff. I hulled the clothes off my skin as pain fisted around my purpose. A temple conch blasted on the shore below, the first shrill note to awaken a god. Conferences of large-billed crows and terns competed for silvery coins of dried sardines, karuadu as breakfast scraps. I unscrewed the vial of crate venom filched from the herpetologist's freezer, downing it in a gulp. A sudden vision of her braid, a pang, nothing more than a momentary diversion. Holding your skin in my ring-fingerless hand as blood dyed your cast-off life, I leaped into the murk of the sea. You once said that I was not a prince. I now know this to be the truth, even as I scattered home to my husband, who was my cousin, to the herpetologist. In the beginning, that was the end. Unlike the prince who was the son of flowing rivers and war, I chose the snake. I chose you. Thank you, guys.
Wow,
And
that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Laura, what a program tonight, man. Um, I could listen to both of you read all night long. Seriously.
right.
Really lovely work. Thank you so much for bringing it to us.
And
Uh,
we have that thread of the people of the water running through it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you two know that
I
was
was
going?
going to ask you if you did this by design, because I'm like,
No, no, I
One
just
of the interesting things is that I had originally thought of a different story I was going to read, but then I
uh,
ended up changing it. So maybe the universe was just
Oh,
telling me that
right, right.
right?
we were going
Universe
to
was like
match.
picked up the wavelength, and
so to
that's
speak.
so cool.
It was all about bodies of water. I was like, oh, so this was like Laura and Dan. I thought you guys planned it, but no.
No, not at all. But sometimes it works out that way sometimes, and
Mhm.
even if the stories are not obviously thematically linked, there's still, and it could be very different. There's something about the program that just sort of like hangs together way more often than not. I don't think we rarely get like any kind of dissonance between stories or authors. But this was just phenomenal. I mean, um, well, thank you both so much again. That's Don Vogel and ML Krishnan. Um, wow, we are lucky, Laura. Um,
Truly are.
so thanks for joining us again, Story Hour. Please come back next week when we will have Elad Haber, Carl Dandenel, and Rebecca Gomez Farrell will be a guest host, which we do from time to time. If you feel like you want to do that, just shout out to Laura or I, and we'll happy to talk to you about it. Um, so I want to thank again our authors. Uh, Don Vogel, ML Krishnan, really phenomenal work. I want to thank my co-host, Laura Blackwell, who uh, joined me very early on in this venture or adventure, and I really wouldn't be anything remotely like what it is now. She has far better social skills than I do, so it's really been instrumental in scaling this up to what it is. So thanks, Laura. I'm forever grateful for your collaboration and all of you, for gosh sakes, just coming back week after week. So we're here 5 years. We're not stopping, and there it is. Thanks for coming. Bye, everybody.